Hello, everyone. Welcome to the first episode of the Sunlight Express podcast. My name is Dave Musgrave. I'm coming to you from the Canadian province of Ontario, about 45 minutes outside of Toronto, originally from Nova Scotia. And I'm joined by my co host, Franklin. Franklin, if you could introduce yourself as well.
Sure, I'm Franklin Oliver. I'm an American who spent most of 2025 living relatively close to Dave in Ontario. I'm back home in Indiana. Look that up, it's a song. And we are incredibly excited about starting this journey of a brand new podcast where we're really focused on spreading more light into the world. And we're super excited to introduce to you our very first guest. And I'll ask Dave to do that because Dave actually goes way, way back with our guest, who I am getting to meet for the first time today. So,
Yeah,
Dave?
thanks to you so much, Franklin. Our guest is my lifetime friend, Joe Robson, who's also from the small town of North Sydney, Nova Scotia. And Joe agreed to join us. I explained to you, Joe, we'll explain for a moment now that the idea is that we want to talk to people about, somewhat issues of social justice and identity, but mostly just, uncovering stories of you really don't know what someone's lived experience is until you really, help shine a light and give a person a chance to share their journey. I think Franklin and I might be accused of being woke by some people, and that will be somewhat of a theme of the podcast, while at the same time, we want to be accessible for people as well, and just hit the best of everything. But yeah, so we wanted to start the podcast series with this episode tonight with yourself, Joe. Um, so Joe's a few years older than me, just outing you there and dating you. But we grew up in North Sydney together on the Isle of Cape Breton, and Joe's sister Sarah was my best friend growing up. And why don't you talk about some of your memories, Joe, of our families together?
Oh God. I was at your place all the time. Well, we moved to Halifax, from Halifax to Cape Breton when I was 4. And the first person I met on the street was your brother Stu. And I remember him taking me up to your place and your mom making Kool-Aid. She didn't use enough sugar, but that's cool. But and then, it would be like watching the Great Money movie at 5 o'clock. I'd be sitting in there and your mom would come through and have some food and we would sit and we would watch the show out of Maine with some terrible Western or some kind of movie that was on at supper time and then you guys were babies then. When I was 4 or 5 years old, you guys were one. So, you grew up with my sister
Ooh.
basically because you guys were right in close proximity. She didn't have anybody to really play with, and we were just there, and it was cool. We had growing up in the 70s and the 80s was in the early 80s was wild just because you'd go out and you just do your thing and you'd wait until my mom used to use a whistle to call us home for supper. So I'd be sitting there and it'd be playing in somebody's backyard and you'd hear this gym teacher's whistle and I'd be running home because it's 5 o'clock and I don't want to get in trouble. But most times it was like, I'm at Stewart's, so I'm gonna have supper here. And I'd be like, all right, you dial the 5 digits, you get your mom and you tell her you're not coming home, and to do, we just hung up. And that's the way it was.
So, Joe, I want to ask you to explain for
Okay,
folks
so
who are
you
a
have
little
an
bit
area, we have
younger.
an area code. We have say you have a 555, and then you have a 555 again, and then you have a 1 2 3 4 5. All we had to do was dial 5 1 2 3 4 5, the last 5 digits of the number, and that was all it was. Didn't because it knew if you were punching in that last digit, it knew you where you were.
The local system meant everyone close by and just
Yeah, so it
okay.
was
Yeah,
mine was 47505.
I recognize that number.
Yes, sir.
Do you remember ours?
44907. No, 47. It
Four
was
four two two two.
44. Oh, it was the 222s. Yours was the twos.
Yeah.
I love that.
No, I was because I was discussing this the other day with a couple of my other buddies I grew up with, and I knew both their numbers off by heart. I couldn't remember yours.
I have to
Because
say,
my buddies lived further away and Stu was in the backyard. All I had to do was just go through my backyard if I wanted to go down there. So I really didn't usually didn't call you guys.
yeah,
It was
of course,
much
that
easier
makes
just to
perfect
walk through the
sense.
backyard. And
I'm guessing that,
I do remember they had a great side yard. It was very, very big, so we used to play
mm,
baseball in it. And I do remember playing lawn darts, the metal tipped lawn darts that, and surprisingly, no one got hurt. We were all smart enough to not stand under the big giant metal projectiles. It was cool. We were good kids.
life
Joe, I do have to ask
in the 20th century, right?
your your sister being my best friend, being a girl, she had different experiences than you might have had. I'm just wondering, do you remember, were you ever exposed to the sopper boppers we had? Remember those?
The Sopater, the punchies.
The big
Yeah,
inflatable
the
boxing
punch,
gloves that we
the
just
big boxing gloves. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
we beat the life out of each other with them, and then they disappeared into apparently our garage for about 5 years, and then reappeared and quickly disappeared again after a week.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Realized all the potential
Your
for
dad was
damage there
smart enough
was.
to be able to figure out that they just like the lawn darts. Where did those lawn darts go?
Yeah. So yeah,
Yeah.
so that's I had actually that was going to be one of my questions about moving from Halifax. I wasn't sure if you'd been spent your like if you were born and spent your first few years in Halifax or not. So our my family, we were in Saskatchewan for a year from when I was 8 months old till I was 18 months old. And then it would have been a couple years later after we got back that you guys would have moved into the neighborhood. And your was your father from Halifax as well?
No, he grew up in North Sydney.
In North Sydney, okay. But your mother was from Halifax, and your mother being Wanda, your dad also being Joe.
Yeah.
And so my memory is that I was actually very late speaking, depending on which of my parents you asked. If you asked my dad, I didn't really form words very much and couldn't really be understood until I was 4. If you asked my mom, I just didn't talk till I was 4. Regardless, what I do know is my first word was Sarah. So that's pretty special to
Okay.
me regarding your
Good enough.
sister.
Good
And
enough.
we spent all our time together. I remember us being in elementary school together at Seton,
Yeah.
playing superheroes with the neighborhood kid Mike all the time. And I would say up until I was about 10, Sarah was my closest friend, absolutely, and still stayed closeness throughout the years. So in my early 20s, I was working in a group home with Sarah, which was a pretty unique, pretty great experience to have together. She moved away to New Brunswick, and then I moved there a few years later, and we hung out there as well until I moved to Ontario. And then in the Facebook years, we were able to keep in touch quite a bit as well.
Yeah.
One thing I mentioned when I talked to you a few weeks back, Joe, is that I didn't understand as a very young child. Uh, we lived in a town that was decidedly white,
Yeah.
and I didn't understand that uh, Sarah was biracial and that your mother was black. And obviously, playing that out, I didn't understand your own heritage as well, Joe. So, so I didn't have understanding of that, but I did start to get an
But
understanding of that.
nobody really did. I mean,
Mm.
I don't look biracial. I mean, I don't look anything like that. But the funny thing is growing up in a small town, there was my mom and me. So, I got a few little racial slurs here and there, mostly because of my mom. Nothing horrible. Like, you know, I don't have a terrible, like, oh my God, I was persecuted and,
Mhm.
rejected and everything. It's nothing like that. It was, but there was the Indian family as well, but the Ballas. So there was really only like three people, and there was another family, I can't remember their names, but there was only three people of color, three families of color in the whole town. So, and
Mhm.
I felt very, for the most part, very, accepted.
Yeah,
And
and
so, Joe, may I
I
ask,
heard
does that
very few
mean that people
stories.
assume that you were um, biracial? People knew that about you, even
Well,
though
everybody
you're
knew
white
it was a
passing?
very small town, so everybody knew everybody, and everybody knew my mom.
Oh, okay.
So everybody
Okay.
knew who my mom was for the most part. It wasn't until I went away to university, then I would really see a lot of true colors in people. You know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, yeah.
A lot of
Okay.
like kind of like an undercover brother. I'm an undercover brother. People don't know. So then I hear somebody
Sure,
say something. I'm
sure.
like, hey, I don't know if you know this, but my mom's black. And they'd be like, F off, get out of here, you liar. And like, okay. And then someone else would go, no, he's telling the truth. And then,
Yeah.
Oh my
Wow.
gosh.
and then
Okay. Okay.
I would get an apology or I would get a joke, one or the other.
Oh, okay. I'm
You know
guessing
what I
sometimes,
mean? Man, it was just a
yeah,
joke.
of course, of course.
Yeah.
Sure.
Mhm.
But it is amazing to see like from a perspective of like, hey, you know, what people will, people their true colors, you get,
Yeah.
Mhm.
And in a sense, I'm guessing that also meant a revelation about your true colors, um, even though not phenotypically, something that was important about you and your family.
Yeah, no, I mean, my mom grew up in the Depression. My mom was born in 1926. So she grew up in the Depression. She had a time, and the whole family had a time. And they were fairly they did fairly well from where they were, and as a family perspective, they did okay, but they did okay as a black family.
Relatively speaking.
Okay,
Sure, sure.
yeah. But
Well,
again,
I,
And
she told me stories of teachers that used to put her down and teachers that, would say things, to her and tell her,
okay.
you're not smart enough because you're you're not, you know. But growing up,
Okay.
she did a lot of good things. Like she kind of was a little bit of a trailblazer, and we'll talk about that, I guess, when we get
for
there.
sure. If I'm not mistaken as well, Joe, your grandparents, your mom's parents, are also had immigrated to Halifax from the States, did they not?
They did, yes.
So, um,
Okay.
so I'll have, and I don't think they didn't immigrate together. They happened to meet in Halifax, if I recall from
My
reading
my
from.
my grandfather was they're yeah, I'm not, to be honest, I don't even know.
Hmm.
I'm I'm a little bad with my mom's side history because all I got growing up was stories, and I got a lot of stories, and
That's great.
some of them overlap. Some of them some of them overlap, and I know mom used to sometimes she'd never exaggerate. She would embellish. She would make the story a little better now and again. So
Yep. Yep.
I,
and
but I've got a lot of
and
stories growing up.
and Nova Scotia is very much known for its storytelling as well.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. And mom loved to tell a story.
if I'm not mistaken as well, your mother's family
Well,
grew up. Did they live in Africville in Halifax?
Ah, not at all. No,
No. Okay.
no. They actually lived. There was a couple different houses they lived in. They were in nice neighborhoods. They were in decent
mm,
Okay.
neighborhoods. Yeah. So they weren't they
So
weren't.
Yeah, Franklin, for your knowledge, Africville is a very historic area of Halifax, which had a very strong culture, but also faced a lot of oppression as well. So that's
okay.
why
They
I
got the
thought I
different
thought
part, I
I
think,
I thought I'd maybe known that, but I'm apparently
because
mistaken.
they lived
So
in a nicer neighborhood. They actually had a couple of
Oh,
other things happen the other way. They
that
had a
that
little.
makes perfect sense.
yeah, makes sense.
Well, Joe, obviously Dave knew your family, knew your mom, but I didn't. So I wanted to ask how we should refer to her on this podcast.
You can just call her Wanda. How's that?
What does that feel comfortable for you?
Oh yeah, Wanda's great.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, fantastic. Thank you. And for folks that don't know, like me in the United States, would you be willing to tell us a little bit about Wanda and why she's become such an important figure in Canadian history and hopefully soon North American history more broadly?
Yeah. Well, I mom kind of just did her. Mom did her thing.
And this is not the time for false humility.
Yeah.
I
No,
promise.
she
We
she
want to
was
know.
married. She married young to a different guy. They lived in Boston. He was a ball player, I think. He was very abusive. A lot of times she said the cops would show up and he'd be in the door and he'd be like, "I was here all night," and then
Okay,
the cops would
okay.
be banging on the door 5 minutes later. So he was not a nice guy.
Yeah.
But she had three kids with that man. And then she packed the kids up one day and put them on a train, and she booked it to back to Nova Scotia. She's had enough, and
That's remarkable.
Yeah, no, yeah. So she had a full-time job at the Department of Fisheries. She was
Okay.
a researcher.
At,
When
at a time where that probably wasn't easy to accomplish either from her own racial standpoint and gender as well, right? So,
well, so she started there when she was like 18 years old. And so it would have been 26, 30, 35, 34, 35. Oh, yeah,
Wow.
sorry,
Okay.
44, 45. 44, 45. She worked there for a good with the 3 or 4 years in Boston with the first husband. Other than that, she worked there until she retired when she had me at age 45.
Oh my gosh.
So that was 1971. But she met my dad in 65, and that's the thing. My dad is a pasty redhead Englishman who was 12 years younger than her. So in 1965, my 40-year-old mother's dating a 28-year-old college student and she's got three young kids.
Ooh.
So they were together a bunch of years and then they had me. So
yeah.
um, there you go. But I mean that's a I talk about my mom and I talk about my dad. I say my dad's a little odd too, but mostly because he just didn't care.
Yeah.
He loved who he loved, and
Exactly.
he really
Yeah.
really loved that like crazy.
Clearly.
It's crazy. To this
And they
day,
were both
And
so
beautiful.
what's
they were
that?
both so caring. Throughout my life, I had this rocking horse that your dad made for me. It's like he
You
built it
have one
because
of
he was
those, do you?
yeah, he had the woodworking shop, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And then I had these finger puppets that your mom made, and my niece
Okay,
has those now.
okay.
So,
I
uh,
have rocking horses downstairs in my storage unit, and I have
oh, that's amazing.
yeah, and I know my other ones are at home, so
Yeah.
I had him build two rocking horses for my kids.
Okay, I was going to say that probably doesn't fit you that well now. So,
Oh my
No, they're
gosh.
he whipped a couple together from the old plans, and they're in, and my kids remember them, and they love them dearly, just like you did, I guess.
Oh, thank you
So,
for sharing that. That's amazing.
but yeah,
yeah.
no, between mom and dad, no, I had a pretty awesome set of parents. You know, they rarely fought. They were together for 50. Well, okay, how old am I? They were together for 60 years, almost 60 years.
And it was 2022 when your mother passed, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So, I guess one of the things we can segue into is the last years of your mother's life when she became a public figure and the reason why. I can say from my perspective, like, I'd always been around your family, been around your parents. I've been telling this story a fair amount recently because I've been telling people that we were planning on talking to you for the podcast. And I always say, like, to say that your mom, Wanda, was a second mom to me might be a stretch, but it's in the neighborhood, right? So
Yeah, no,
it's
yeah.
not that much of a stretch. So, um, and then in 2010, uh, I saw a news story for the first time about Viola Desmond, who was a woman who's become much more known since 2010 in Canadian history. For in 1946, she was arrested and then the next day convicted for sitting in the whites only section in New Glasgow, Nova Scotia, in a movie theater. She'd broken down in her car on the way from Halifax to Sydney. Sydney being where closer to where we grew up, and Halifax being 4.5 hours away from there. And while she was broken down and waiting overnight, she went to the movies, and they ended up charging her with tax evasion because she insisted on sitting in that section even though she didn't pay for it because they wouldn't let her. So they ended up charging her and convicting her the next morning, which does not sound like any kind of due process. Uh, so in
Mhm.
2010, the new government of Nova Scotia at that time granted a full pardon for her. Oh no, a free pardon was the term,
There you go,
which
free pardon.
essentially implied no, basically affirmed the fact that the law itself was immoral. So not just getting rid of a record, but annulling essentially the charge and conviction, saying
Yes,
that it was
yes.
immoral for the law to be in place. And nobody had known her story. She This happened in 1946, and she passed away just about 20 years later. But people had it had been kind of forgotten to history until this story started to get a lot of awareness and public advocacy because of the efforts of Viola Desmond's sister, your mother, Wanda.
Yeah.
So I just do you have much recollection of how your mother got into the process of starting to raise this advocacy within this century about Viola?
Yeah, I do. I was a little bit there. Well, granted, I was living away, but growing up, I never heard the story. I never once heard that story. I don't know whether it was, I'm assuming it was a shameful thing, and that mom didn't want to tell that story because it didn't make her look like a hero. It made her look like a criminal. So I never heard.
Absolutely.
Um, my mom, when she turned 72, 73, 70, somewhere in there, she decided to go back to school. School was free. They said dad saw in the paper, he saw a course. Mom loved writing, creative writing, and she said, "Hey, why don't you go over? They have a course in creative writing and historical writing and a few things like that. Why don't you go and take a course? So you're not doing anything." And she said, "Well, no, I'm really old. I don't think I can do that. That's all these kids will make fun of me. I'll just be annoying and people
Yeah.
will hate me." And dad said, "No, go do something good. Go do something fun." So she was sitting in class one day and her professor was telling the story of Viola Desmond. And 3/4 of the way through the story, my mom raised her hand. She said, not to say anything, but this is my sister." And instantly they became best friends. He's a history guy. He's crazy in history guy. He writes a lot of books. Instantly they became best friends. And they after class they talked about, her history. And he realized what he had sitting right in front of him was a living time capsule, a living
Absolutely.
document to what happened, and it's from some other perspective. But so that was in about 2002, I think, somewhere there. And that had just gone on and on and on with basically trying to get a little more. He was very adamant about getting more awareness. He was already on the train. He was already telling the story. He was already, tooting the whistle here, ready to go. And it just seemed to snowball from there, mostly with help from others. She kept saying, "I don't see the big deal. I don't see," and they're like, "No, you're the one who needs to tell her story. She's not here. She can't tell the story. You're the only person left who can tell it." And so that's what she started to do. And she started to go around. She started to go to schools and different places and basically just talk about her sister and talk about growing up in Nova Scotia and about, the thing. But even then, the story itself wasn't very well known. And, and I got a call from my dad. He said, "Yeah, they're having a thing at Parliament House. And we're invited to go." And I said, "Well, what's it for?" He's like, "Well, we're not really sure." So he said, "We think it has something to do with Viola." And we got there and we sat down, and then there was my aunt Frances was there, and a lot of big wigs and a lot of big Nova Scotia and mom was up there all of a sudden accepting a free pardon on Viola's behalf, and she had no idea really that was going to happen, and it kind of was sprung on us. Well, it was the information was there, but it was like we didn't realize. We thought it was just going to be, "Oh, come on in, we'll give you a piece of paper and we'll send you on your way." They had uh video cameras there, and the press was there, and everything was there, and it was a big deal. And it was a big deal for mom's family. It was a big deal for her, and it was a big deal for Viola.
So, Joe, from my perspective as an American, the notion of a free pardon is a little bit new. Would you mind explaining what that entails, what that actually
It just
means?
means it just wipes it off the books. Never happened. it instead of it's her them saying no, she was not guilty, and reversing the decision. The free pardon actually annuls and voids the entire charge and erases it from the books, and basically turns it into a it never happened scenario, and it should have
Okay.
never, and it should have never happened scenario.
Oh, so in
It
some sense,
almost
this is
becomes
almost a recompense.
Yes, there you go.
We did not need to do this to you.
Yeah, there you go. And
Okay, thank you so much.
we're very sorry about that. Is what they're
yeah.
saying.
It's almost like
Thank you
it's
for
a
explaining
conviction
that.
upon the convictors, right? It's like
Yeah.
they were the ones who were in the wrong here, and it sounds like it's the strongest version of it that's possible, from what I know. So
Yeah. There I don't I do remember hearing something about there's not been too many free pardons given in the
yeah,
history of the judicial system in Canada. So don't quote me on that, but
Well, governments are pretty reluctant to declare that they were themselves in the
oh,
wrong. So
now
that's great. Thank you.
in the little town that's there that it happened in, they have Viola Desmond Way. Um, Later on, they had a thing where they put her into the Canadian Museum, and they put her on the $10 bill, so she's actually on our currency. It's pretty weird when I pull out a 10 and I go, "Oh, that's my aunt," and they're like, "What are you talking about, you weirdo?" I'm like, "No, that's my aunt." Like,
yeah.
yeah, okay, buddy, have another one.
So
But
So let me
yeah, and
ask, does that the
there's
thing
public
kind of thing that
schools up
really does
around.
happen?
There's public schools near me that are named after her, and there's
yeah,
just
yeah.
holidays have been named after her. A ferry in Halifax.
Ferry, yeah. I've got the plans for the ferry sitting on there's a plaque with the plans for the ferry on the wall there at my dad's place. Um, that was funny because I remember seeing like a Maple Leaf meats commercial, sandwich meats commercial,
Hmm.
and the kids stayed home and played hooky from school, and the cell phone kept ringing. It kept saying Viola Desmond school calling, and they were home playing hooky. So I was like, that's right there. But
Oh,
no,
That's
it's
fantastic.
kind of weird. It's kind of weird when your family has a thing. I told my buddy, I was talking to him the other day. I said I usually don't tell people my aunt is Viola Desmond. I don't really brag it up. And he's like, why not? I would tell everybody. So
so I want to ask you to tell everybody, because especially for me, in my perspective as an American, I lived in Ontario for 6 months or so this year, but
yeah,
I'd literally never heard of Viola Desmond.
of course
Um,
not.
is she
Everybody's heard of
something
Rosa
close to
Parks.
a, well, yes, and she's
What year was
referred
Rosa
to as
Parks?
1955.
Exactly.
So Viola, her situation was 9 years earlier, and
Yeah,
that's part of what I'm curious about. Does everyone in Canada know who Viola Desmond is?
they do now.
Oh my gosh.
And that's
And
pretty
that's
much,
thanks to your mom.
I say
Yeah.
it's thanks to my mom, but it's not really thanks to my mom. She had a pile of
Are
people.
you sure?
Like she had a pile of people pushing this agenda to get this out there and for this to be a thing. And but as far as picking a representative, they couldn't have picked a better person. Wanda was
I think it's
an
fair
amazing
to say it was a
spokesperson.
combination. Yeah, a combination of your mother and the what's the name of the gentleman who was her professor?
I'm
Graham.
sorry. Yeah,
Graham.
yeah, yeah.
I'll check it out.
Thank you.
My understanding is from I actually met your mother a year after I saw your mother a year after the pardon. I saw your parents at the Sydney casino when I was home because my dad was quite ill, and
Yeah,
I was taking care of him and blowing off steam at night in the casino. And your dad had like a one of those cups that they have at the Sydney casino, just full of tokens, and he was very proud of
yeah,
himself. And I remember talking
yeah.
with your mom, and she was saying herself and her professor, who is Ronald Kaplan, it looks like his
Yeah,
name,
there you
not
go.
Graham,
Yeah,
not
wrong
Ollie.
Kaplan. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. I liked and I researched the episode. So that they'd actually originally been advocating for just a plaque in New Glasgow, and it led to this,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
So
Yeah. And it
yeah,
was basically him. He did the work, and he actually has a book that just came out within the last year, about my mom. Mom wrote a book herself, and I have a copy of that here behind me. And he wrote a book. I haven't read it yet because my dad was supposed to send me a copy, and he has not.
So,
that's
Joe,
great.
you said that we couldn't have found a better representative to share Viola's story than your mom. Would you mind saying a little bit more about why your mom was so good
Um, she
um,
just loved to. She
for
loved to talk to
doing?
people. She just loved people and loved to talk to people. And she was good at it. She was real good at it. And the funny thing is, you'd see her on stage, you'd see her talking to some people. She would give talks to whoever, if she talks to whoever listened. But we had a thing one night. She got up there and it was my dad's birthday, and she started doing this weird little Marilyn Monroe "Happy Birthday to You" thing to my dad, and I was mortified, of course. Um, the thing is, what nobody knows is that she had a lot of anxiety about doing these things, um, and didn't come it didn't come easy to her for some reason. Once she was up there, she was fine, but getting her up there was a giant pain in the butt sometimes. But no, but when she started speaking, people listened, and she would hold them, she would captivate them, and she would really, really wrap them in a story. And I grew up with these stories. I have
Yep.
tons of stories. I have the Titanic story, the Halifax explosion story. I have
Ooh.
that which happened before she was born, so obviously it's told to her from her parents. But
Yeah, yeah.
I have the explosion story. I have her driving with Viola in a car through the streets of Halifax, and Viola was apparently a maniac driver. Um, different things, like I've got stories about my Uncle Jack and the shenanigans he got up to, and she would just carry this legacy of her family's legacy of stories and just tell them. And I'd be like, sometimes I'd be sitting there like, Mom, come on, I've heard this story a million times, and this person hasn't. So yeah, but
That's fantastic.
she had a lot of practice telling the stories, and she really, really put her whole heart into making sure that you enjoyed them.
Well, I think that's super interesting because you said that she didn't tell you the story of her sister while you were growing up.
That is
So,
that's one of the one things
yeah.
I'd never heard, and I'm sitting in the free pardon ceremony
Hmm.
thinking I know a little tiny bit about this.
Yeah.
I was living away for a while. I lived in New Hampshire, and then I moved back to Canada in 2004. And I was living away from my parents, so I only saw them when we visited together. And
Sure.
it would come up in passing, like, "Oh, yeah, I've got this thing going on with my professor about your Aunt Viola," and that would be about it. And she never actually sat down and told me the story. And until I heard her tell that story in its entirety. By the way, Viola, the reason she sat in the whites only section was because the black section was in the balcony. She couldn't see from the balcony. She wanted to see the screen. She went downstairs. She said, "I can't see from the balcony. I'd like
Hmm.
a downstairs ticket, please." And they said no. And she said, "I will pay. Here's the 2 cents." And
Okay.
she left the 2 cents on the counter and she went down, and they said, "No, you've defrauded the movie theater of a 1 cent tax for the difference between sitting downstairs and sitting upstairs," or something like that. Anyway,
Okay. Okay.
and
it was
and she
it was
spent
a
the night
thing,
in jail.
and she spent the night in jail.
She spent the night. Oh,
The they
okay. That's a part of the
actually
story I didn't
they
know.
actually physically removed her from the theater. They had police. The police chief was not moved. There is a thing they said, Viola Desmond will not be moved. There is a
Wow.
saying, she will not be moved. And the police came, and she was a small lady.
Yeah.
She had
Yeah.
her fingertips in the door frames, and
Okay.
they dragged her out of there. Um,
Wow. Thank you for sharing those details. Um, I've been a history teacher for the last 20 years and have consistently taught about Rosa Parks. Um, even though some school textbooks now are trying to remove Rosa Parks' race from the textbooks. So maybe
okay.
they'll say that she's brave, but they don't
Oh,
say
yeah,
why
yeah.
she needed
Okay.
to be brave. So I'm curious as to whether either of you know, um, was that sort of segregation the default in Canada back in the
It was the same
1940s?
everywhere. You know,
Really? Okay.
it was the same everywhere.
Okay.
I mean, she now the thing was, Viola had a very successful business. She owned a car. She owned a beauty school. She had her own line of African American beauty products designed for African Americans to sell to African Americans. She had a school where she taught She had a beautician school. She went to various trips to New York. She was doing very well, and she had the money to pay for the one penny to downstairs. You know what I'm saying? So money was an issue. The only reason she got stuck in New Glasgow is because her car broke down.
Yeah.
But she got stuck in New Glasgow, couldn't get the part until the next day. And but she was very she went on to continue to be very successful. But
It,
that thing always was a blemish. And I
Of
do remember
course.
mom saying that her parents were not like they wanted, some people were advocating for, justice for her after it happened. And her parents were like, no, just keep your mouth shut, mind your business, and we'll just ignore that this happened. We'll
We don't
sweep.
want our daughter to be seen as a criminal.
Yeah, no, they're just like, we don't want that, you know, that's the way it is.
Of course.
And
Of course.
you don't want your name published and dragged through the mud even if there was no dragging through the mud, you know what I mean?
Sure. Sure.
But it was a different time, right?
No, that makes perfect sense. Dave, did you have a
I
question you
think,
wanted to ask Joe?
yeah,
Oh, I'm
I
sorry.
was going to mention too that one of the part of the story that I know is that Viola wasn't able to get into beauty school in Halifax because of her race. So she went away and studied in both Montreal and New York City, and created essentially a field within Nova Scotia,
Yes, yes. She was
and then started
basically yeah, she was a
training other
pioneer.
young black women as well into the field. So
Yeah, no, you are correct, sir.
yeah,
Yeah, no,
and
it's kind of weird.
yeah, and
Yeah.
then after the incident, November 1946, it was the Nova Scotia Association for the Advancement of Colored People that was trying to advocate with her. Um, and it's a bit of a time and place thing because it was the NAACP in the U.S. that advocated 9 years later with Rosa, right? So one of the things I wanted to mention as well is when you were talking about your mother being in the US, one of the things I know from reading your mother's fantastic book is that it was Viola who came and got her and helped her come back, remove
Yeah, I
her
didn't I
into
didn't want to jump
Canada.
to that before we even got to the whole surprise Viola thing.
Yeah, no, exactly.
Viola Viola was down there while she was there, and she was basically the person who said, "Hey, this is one of the stories I heard many times. Hey, so what happened was her husband was gone. Her Viola showed up. She had all the electric and the heat was turned off. It was winter. She had no food and she had no heat, no power. Viola had come down for a visit and showed up at exactly the wrong time. Let's put it that way.
Hmm.
Um, that same day, the lights and the power went out. She went down. She spoke to the electric company. She got the power turned back on. She got the heat back on. She got the water going again. Uh, she she basically, yeah, mom was a lot of things, but one of them was not. She was not very confrontational.
Yeah.
She was proud, and she would have sat there and she would have done her best to keep the kids warm and get them fed. But I don't think she knew and she was really young too. I don't think she really knew what to do. So luckily
And
Viola was,
she would have been stuck in the cycle of abuse as well, right? Which
yeah. Well,
is
no, she was getting
it's
out either
hard
way.
to see when you're living
She
it.
was getting out anyway, I'm pretty sure. But one way or another, she was going to be gone. But it just so happened that Viola was there that weekend and helped her get everything organized for them to get out of there.
Yeah.
So Big Sister comes to the rescue. They
Yeah, Viola
they
was pretty. Apparently,
make
she was very bossy too. So,
okay.
so, so
Well,
it's
and
like,
she was literally a boss.
well, yeah, she was a boss. So,
Yeah.
I mean, in order to get anywhere in business, you've got to be a boss bitch, and I guess she was a boss bitch.
Well, and to imagine that as a woman of color in the
Yeah,
1940s and 50s,
yeah.
that's just astonishing to me.
Well, that's the thing. She stormed down to the electric company, a black lady, telling them to turn on this power, turn that power back on. There are three little babies in that place, and they're freezing. And you have the audacity in the middle of the winter to turn the heat off.
Yes.
That's my mother.
Whew.
That's my mother telling the story.
And that's one of the stories you did hear growing up.
I heard lots of those ones. So
Oh my gosh.
yeah.
That's
I've got
tremendous.
three older step brothers or half
Yeah,
brothers
yeah.
who
Okay.
uh who I hear stuff from too. So
Hmm.
Because they actually lived through that experience.
yeah, they were on the
Yeah.
train. They were I think five. 5, 4, and 2.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
So they were on the train, and I coming from Boston up to Halifax, and I remember Mom telling a story about them running around the train and don't bug them. And I stopped bugging people, and there was a very nice person on the train who let Mom sleep, and basically they
That's incredible.
they
Yeah.
watched the kids. But like I said, there's good people everywhere.
Here,
You
here.
say
Here,
that, but
here.
like I always say, there are good people everywhere. You just got to find
Well,
them.
yeah, and I just want to say thank you because you're, um, in a sense, replicating your mom's work of telling a story about very good people who might have otherwise been overlooked. And legitimately, um, I'm 51 years old. I've been a history teacher for 20 years. I didn't know anything about your mom. I didn't know anything about your aunt until Dave was kind enough to explain to me how this black woman got to be on the $10 bill.
Yeah,
And
yeah,
as
yeah,
I started hearing more about this, I thought, wait a second, how is it that I've never heard this story?
yeah. No, it's a good story.
It's amazing. Thank you.
It's kind of cool, and it's I'm glad I'm a part of it. I'm glad that my I like to tell everybody, like I said before, I'm the luckiest guy in the world to have my parents who are my parents. I
Mhm.
lucked out big time. I could have got any number of weirdos, and I got those weirdos, and they're the great ones.
And there were
They're great
weirdos in
people.
our hometown, trust me.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Joe, one of the things I'd like to ask about too is just kind of the people have come to know the legacy of Viola. But the legacy of your mom in her later years having become a civil rights advocate and public figure herself. And I know when we spoke recently, you talked about your mom having essentially four stages in her life. If you could maybe talk about it from that kind of framing.
Yeah, well, like there was the first stage growing up. Then there's the that shall not be named in Boston stage, the coming back and becoming a you know partner with my dad, and then this whole Viola thing. So it's basically she basically by going to university and getting her university degree at age 74. She did more in her life from 74 to 95 than I've done in my 55 years on the earth. And that's just one portion of what she's done, Not to mention she's raised me and Sarah. She raised three other boys before she had to raise us. I mean, she did a lot. And the thing was, she did it with a smile. She used to, I'm not trying to, you know, she volunteered for the brownies. She was a brownie leader. She was a guide leader. She used to walk around town for the Heart and Stroke Foundation, knock door to door, and campaign and get and collect money for the Heart and Stroke Foundation. I don't know if you remember this or not, Dave, but she started the breakfast program at Thompson at junior high. She started a breakfast program. She
I've
didn't.
got a story about that in a moment.
I did not even know that there were people who were coming to school in 1990 that were coming to school hungry.
Yeah,
You never think about that. And
of
mom
course.
had the foresight to say, hey, I'm going to go down there and I'm going to make a little breakfast and people and try not, it's not a shameful thing. It's not a thing. It's not a something that should be looked down upon. It should be something that everybody has the right to is getting up and not having an empty belly,
Yeah.
you know. So she also worked on the Nova Scotia Status of the Council of Women. She did a ton of stuff, a
And
buttload
there's a
of stuff. And
human
like I
rights museum in
this is
Winnipeg
all
that she
this
was.
is just I don't like to talk about I don't
She
I just
deserves
think
it.
of her as my mom. And then when I'm saying all this stuff back, I'm realizing, man, she was a friggin' dynamo. She was just a person who for some reason just had the motivation and the get up and go and do it. And
Yes.
whether it was for little girls and brownies, whether it was feeding kids in the junior high, whether it was for the status of women, whether it was for the advocacy for human rights, for African American rights, uh, she was there. And the other thing was North Sydney is small. There's nothing
Seven
there.
thousand people or so. Yeah.
There's
Yep.
nothing, but there's no real groups to join. You're like, I want
Sure.
to join up with a bunch of people that are like me. Well, they're all 4 hours away in Halifax, But she ended up on the status of council women. She ended up being a leader and a community leader and a role model for a lot of these young girls. And she used to love going to schools and giving talks to these kids in schools. Basically, the other thing was she always, always, always said that education is so important. Being educated is such a blessing, and it's so important for the young people. And she would go to schools and sit there and she would tell Viola's story. But she said the main reason wasn't just to get the story out there, it was to tell the kids about education and about being educated, about being a smart person and being informed. And that's where she was. That's where her head was. And now that I'm saying all this stuff back, and I'm like, I'm on the verge of choking up a little bit about my mom here, just
Yeah,
because I'm realizing, she's done a lot. She did a lot of things for a lot of people, and she was very unrecognized for the things she really did. It wasn't
Hmm.
just for Viola. She wasn't, and people were like, and her sisters, sometimes her sisters were a little catty. Oh, you're doing this just for fame and attention.
sure,
You're
sure.
talking up Viola for fame and attention. Our family business is our family business. You need to keep it private.
Uh-huh.
Like, I'm not talking up Viola for me. This thing has taken on a life of its own. This is beyond me now. This is something that is out there, and it's going to be out there, whether it's the $10 bill, whether it's Viola Desmond Way, whether it's a ferry, whether it's a school, it's out there and it's not going to go away. So God bless her for that, and God bless,
Yeah.
everything
Joe,
about this is just cool,
yeah, thank you
Here,
so much for
here.
sharing all this, Joe. Yeah.
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 Joe, I
One of the
want to
things
say
I
out
can,
loud, sunlight is
Yeah.
not shy. It shines anywhere and everywhere it's allowed, and it sounds like your mom did the same. So I
Mhm.
I'm
really
not
want to tell you
I'm
how
not
much I
gonna
appreciate you and
gonna
share
say it was
your
sunshine and
story.
roses for her whole life. Like I said, she's
Of
had
course
struggles,
not.
had a lot of things.
A-
Everybody has struggles. Everybody has
Absolutely.
times in their life when they doubt themselves, and everybody has times when they just don't think they're good enough.
And she was
That
able to
the
find
other
the
thing,
light
my
anyway.
dad was there, and he was 100% behind her the whole way,
Uh,
saying
Complete rock.
he,
Yeah.
he was the he would take. She didn't drive, so he took her everywhere. He took her to meetings. He took her
Wow.
to all these things. He was basically her manager, I guess you'd say. I don't know.
The-
I don't know.
There, there's a video of the Human Rights Museum opening in Winnipeg, and the video has your father pushing her
Oh yeah,
up
no,
the walkway in the wheelchair, right? And it's
yeah,
just
he's there.
beautiful.
He's just there.
Yeah.
He's
Wow.
And
I have a picture on my phone. I took it one night. They came down to visit. They were sitting on the couch, and you know how just at the start where the phones came out and they had the little thing where you could do like a small video preview.
Yeah, yeah.
And literally so you could pick a picture out of the 17 frames or whatever. And the picture I have is of my mom and dad sitting on the couch, and mom's asleep and dad's asleep, and mom's head slightly just goes like this on his shoulder. And it's on my phone. It's one of my cherished little things that I have where I can go back and look at it and realize, the love that they have from each other is crazy.
If you wouldn't mind sharing that picture with us, I would love to see that.
I gotta
That
dig it out
sounds so
somewhere.
beautiful.
I'll have
yeah.
to
It
go
sounds
through
so
and
beautiful.
find it again. I've archived it, but it's
Well,
there.
and it sounds like a perfect encapsulation of their relationship.
Yeah, no, it is. They slept a lot too. Dad loves his naps.
Joe,
Okay, well,
one of
I
the
do
things
too.
I one of the things is that Viola's influence, she wasn't able to know it in her lifetime, but your mother was able to know it, and I think it'll grow even more. And there's a lot of videos of your mother, news stories about her sharing Viola stories. And there's one I'm sure it's in a number of ones that I've shared because I've been doing that. But there's just one where she was presenting at a school, and I remember she was saying to these young schoolgirls, some of them black, you could be a Viola Desmond too. And I just remember she was being looked at with more awe than any rock star or NFL star you could ever see, and it was just phenomenal because I she's wanted to me. And
Yeah.
that story I told about running into them at the casino when my dad was sick, I was telling her how much I was doing for my dad, and she said, "I'm proud of you, David. I'm proud of you." And she put her hand on my knee and kept saying it, and it just that's the last time I saw your mom,
Yeah.
2011, and I'm
No,
so glad
she's
I had that experience.
for some reason she always knew the right thing to say to whoever it was. whether it was me and I fell down and I skinned my knee, or you
Hmm.
dealing with your dad, it was always the
Yeah.
right thing to say. And that's a gift too, right?
Yeah.
It sounds like your mom was someone who truly led with love.
She did. She's a great person. And
That's
I miss her.
phenomenal. Wow. Joe, thank you so, so much.
Yeah, you're welcome. I mean, thank you
I've got
guys. I'm kind of getting a little blast from the past today with my emotions. You're kind of killing me here a
um
little
can I share
bit.
a moment of
Killing me with
levity that ties
kindness.
into us? Can I share a moment of levity that ties into a story you told?
Sure.
So you were talking about the breakfast program your mother ran, and there was so much focus on this with it not being stigmatizing that anybody should go. This is for every kid. So it just didn't feel like it was the less advantaged kids who were able to go and have breakfast at this school. That being said, Joe, you grew up with my family. You know that my mom was known for hosting feasts for the entire
Yeah.
community, having dozens of people there, seafood chowder that my dad didn't find out until he was the one going to get the groceries, how much it actually cost. You get full lobsters and throw them into a pot for
Yeah.
dozens of people. Um, just she was known for being such a generous host and having so much all the time. My younger brother Steve, little Steven at the time, spiked hair, glasses, looked like the Jerry Maguire kid. He was determined that he wanted to go to this breakfast program the first day. And my parents were for it, my dad especially. And then they did a news story on the breakfast program.
Okay.
What child do they show eating pancakes by himself, looking like a Charles Dickens character at 12 years old? But my brother sitting there eating pancakes, and my mom is like, he was the only child they showed. And all these
Awesome.
people who left just knew the irony of it were calling mom and offering canned food, offering to bring her all kinds of stuff. Yeah,
Classic.
so yeah, it's great stuff.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, I just remember the relationship between our sets of parents as well. And I, your mother, as you said, lived a very full life, and we've also been very unfortunate to have lost your sister Sarah, who I would love to have been able to have on here with you as well last year. She was such a lovely person, and like I say, we were best friends the first 10 years of her life, and then even going forward. But in my teen years, I became a very introverted, young, shy male, and Sarah was on the opposite of that spectrum
Oh,
in
100%.
terms of yeah.
Yeah, no,
So
no, yeah, she was out there.
yeah, and she was fantastic.
She was friends with everybody. Not in
Yeah.
that way.
So no, 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 but just want to honor her memory. But
Thanks, Dave.
Joe, what do you see? Do you see yourself as having any like? What do you think the value is of sharing her story, your mom's story tonight, and Viola's as well?
Well, uh, if it helps one person, it already helped one person. It helped me today.
Mm.
To be honest, I talk a lot about mom, but I don't get to talk about the things that she did. I just say, oh, that time that mom did this or that or whatever. But I'm realizing now the legacy that mom's left behind, that, she has done a lot. Like I said, she did even after she graduated university at 74 years old, 75 years old, because it was free. But doing all those things and being a lot of things to a lot of different people, and just being there for people. I mean, so her legacy is innumerable, just because so many, if like you said, the kids, man, they look at her in awe. All these kids loved her. We have so many boxes and boxes of little pieces of drawings from kids, from children, from when she would go to the school. They would all draw her a picture. They would all make her a card. They would paint her a picture. They would sing her a song. They made a book. They wrote little booklets. We have boxes and boxes of these things, and we go through them. And it's like, not about Viola Desmond. It's thank you, Mrs. Robson. Thank you for
Mhm.
coming. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being you. Thank you for saying what you
Yes.
said.
Oh,
She's like, we had Mrs. Robson, we had a really great time listening to your stories today. Mrs. Robson, when are you coming back? You know, that's the and if one like I know you guys both have little core memories from growing up when you went to
mhm.
school, you know, we had a cool rock band show up in '85. They had the flying V guitars and stuff. I was like, yeah, that's cool. I want to be a rock star. I'm hoping that one of these little girls that mom gave a talk to remembers, oh my God, I remember the day that Wanda Robson showed up and she just changed my world. And that's what I'm hoping that her legacy is that even if she just changed one or affected or helped one little person to be a good big person. That's
I
all.
know
Joe,
she
thank
had
you
that
for
impact
saying
on
that.
me. Yeah,
I mean, she helped me already. I think I'm a pretty good guy.
doing great. And you mentioned your mother's free education. Yeah, her second degree was also free, the honorary doctorate they gave her from the
Yes, she
same
had an honorary
university.
doctorate from Cape
Dr.
Breton.
And
Robson.
Yeah.
and what's funny is I know you
She didn't
said that
flaunt that very much, though. That's a lie. She's like, I am a doctor.
Yes, I love it. I love it.
I am a
I know you
doctor.
mentioned that. I know
Yes.
you mentioned she thought the young people would make fun of her. They've actually got a corner of the library at that school named after her now,
Yes, and she
and a
has
bust
their
of her
own.
up in the
They made a little brass bust of her as well.
Yeah.
They got
So it's just,
a little thing,
I
a
think your
little.
mom's legacy is going to be recognized more and more. And I'm so glad that you and Sarah are part of it, as well as your father, Joe. So,
Yeah, no, I'm glad I'm glad that's my mom.
Yeah, yeah. And I have to say, even if she didn't have to pay tuition, she still had to go to the classes. She still had to do the
Yeah,
work.
yeah.
yes.
So
And the funny
to
thing
do
is,
that in the
Dad had
70s,
to
oh
drive
my
her.
gosh.
Dad had to drive
Yes.
her.
Yes.
It was
Yeah.
20 minutes away.
That's
Dad
really
had to
funny.
drive her
Yeah.
every day. Not like he wasn't retired either. So yeah.
But the whole commitment of your family to do the right thing and to do good things for other people is really powerful and really telling. So again,
No, and that's
thank you for
and
sharing that
if
story.
more people were like that, man, we'd have a way better
We
time.
could.
Uh, well, and Joe, that's why we're doing this podcast.
That's kind of where I'm going with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Oh my gosh.
Anyway,
Um,
I'm just trying to hook you guys up with a good tagline.
That's great, Joe. I can't think of a better first guest to have either.
here, here.
We're planning on spreading this as far as we can. We have Facebook and LinkedIn and Substack set up. Um, I do a little bit of blogging, as does Franklin. I'd also, if you guys don't mind me doing a shout out, I'd like to give a shout out to the Imagination Factory, which is a company out of the U.S. Run by my friends Matt Anderson and Sherry Williams, and I think it's Cordelia is their other person who runs it with them. I haven't met her yet, and I haven't met them other than online, but they've been a big influence on me this year and a big supporter of this venture. So I just wanted to give them a shout out, and where I'm representing their efforts and wearing their shirt tonight. Can't
Joe,
wait to
don't tell
get
that
this
my
out
shirt is
there.
a generic library shirt
I
because I love all libraries.
don't think I've worn a logo in about 20 years on a shirt, so
Good for
yeah.
you. Good for you.
Yeah,
It's not by choice. I like these. I like these. I'm just an average Joe.
very much an average
Average
Joe.
Joe.
Yes.
Above average Joe. No doubt
Uh,
about it.
who have you been talking to?
Okay, thank you so much, Joe, and thank you, Franklin, and we're looking forward to our next episode and keeping in touch as with the three of us.
Thanks, guys.
Absolutely.
That
And
was really
folks,
fun.
if you enjoyed this episode, got something from it, you're going to be able to share the legacy of any of these amazing folks we talked about. Please make sure you tell folks that you know and love about the Sunlight Express. And of course, please remember to do good and to be well. Thanks all.
Thank you, everyone.